I'd like to welcome you to the newborn baby class. The first 4 to 6 weeks is going to be somewhat overwhelming, and this is something that all first-time parents go through. First of all, it's a big change in your lifestyle. You go from people that if you slept in for work, it's amazing how quick you can get out the door. But once you have children, your life is going to take a lot more planning. And the other thing that you're going to find overwhelming is the sleep deprivation at the beginning. For the first 4 to 6 weeks, it's very normal for babies to be up a lot during the nighttime. So it's really, really important that when you go home with your babies, that do not rely on getting sleep at night, because quite often that won't happen. So when your little baby sleeps during the daytime, forget about everything else. Your house is going to be there forever. Right now, this little baby needs you. So just go and get your rest, and that will make the transition to being new parents, it will go much smoother for you. So congratulations to all of you, and my name's Jeannie, and I have met some of you, and some of you I'm sure I will be meeting. Okay, so everybody in the group is breastfeeding or practicing breastfeeding. I'd just like to let you know, I'd say about 35% of our families do have some trouble with breastfeeding initially. So if you are having some trouble with breastfeeding, please don't feel like you're the only one, okay? Breastfeeding is actually a learning process for both the mummies and the babies, and sometimes it can take a good 6 weeks to get breastfeeding really well established where you feel a lot more comfortable with it. Now, colostrum is considered the perfect food for your baby in the first couple of days. It does come in very small amounts, but it is very high in colostrum. We really encourage you to try to wake your baby up at least every 3 hours. Sometimes the first 24 hours, some of these little babies can be very sleepy. Some of them could have swallowed a lot of stuff during the delivery, and they're mucousy, spitting up a lot of stuff, and they're not that interested in feeding. So if your baby has gone over that 3-hour period, we really do encourage you to wake them up, get them skin to skin, and attempt to breastfeed them. You also want to be watching your little babies for the feeding cues. Now, the kind of feeding cues we're talking about, their little hands going up to their lips, licking at their lips, turning their little heads, looking for something. That's called the rooting reflex. That's the baby's feeding cues. They're showing you they want to eat. Now, if your little baby's too tired or too mucousy and you can't get your baby to the breast, then you want to get your nurse in and you want to get her to get you to start hand expressing. She can teach you how to hand express, how to pump, because you want to be stimulating your breasts at least every 3 hours. The more often your baby is at the breast, and the earlier, right after birth, that will help bring your milk in much quicker. Okay, so there's all different kinds of positions that you can feed your little babies in. And when you go home with your baby, I really encourage you to do some experimenting at home and find your favorite little spot for feeding your baby, and don't be afraid to try some different positions. There's one common thing though about all these positions, and that's the baby's body alignment. Okay? Now, we all love to hold little babies like this, and I go in to help mums with breastfeeding a lot, and I see these little babies, they're lying in the crook of mummy's arms, and mummy's trying to get the baby to the breast. When a little baby's lying like this, what is this baby having to do with their head to get latched to the breast? They have to turn their head. Now, if you turn your head sideways, try swallowing when your head is turned to the side. It's like there's a big lump in your throat. So if you notice with all these little babies, body alignment is very, very important. So you take this little baby, and baby's tummy, mummy's tummy. You want to take this baby that's lying on their back, turn that baby, and bring the baby right to you, okay? And whether you hold your baby this way or whether you've got your baby supported this way, have a look at the ear, the shoulder, and the hip joint. See how you could draw a line right down the baby. So it's body alignment that you're looking for. In this football hold, if you decide to use this football hold, just have a look at your baby, and you want to make sure that that baby's not having to turn their head over their shoulder trying to get latched onto the breast. Okay, so tips for comfort. First of all, We want to get these little babies as close as we can to their mummies. If they're wrapped up in several blankets, it's very hard for their little bodies to get close into mummy. Your body temperature is the perfect temperature for them, okay? So best way to feed your babies is the babies in their diapers, okay? So remember the tummy to tummy with my mummy. So you bring this baby tummy to tummy. You want to keep this little bottom end tucked in nice and close to your body, whether you're holding the baby this way or whether you've got the baby supported this way, their little bottom end needs to be tucked in nice and close. Now, when you're trying to latch your baby, we don't encourage you to grab your baby's head and bring into the breast this way. Because this type of motion, when you do that, you're actually pushing the baby's nose right into the breast, okay? So, and the other thing is, little babies, they don't like to have their heads grabbed either. So what you want to do is just support the baby's head with a couple of your fingers, and where you want that little bit of pressure is right in between their shoulder blades. That is going to tip their chin into the breast and bury it well into the breast, and it also tips their head back slightly into a sniffing position. And what do we do when we drink a glass of water? We take that glass of water and we tip our head back slightly. It's easier to drink that way. And it's easier for your baby to drink that way if their head is in a sniffing position. Also, that will help free up your nose, or the baby's nose, at the breast. Okay? Now, I've got a couple of really nice slides here that shows a little baby that's trying to get latched onto the mummy's breast. Now, you might look at this picture and say, well, why is the mummy aiming the nipple up at the nose instead of having this baby hoisted up and aiming that nipple straight into the mouth this way? When we latch a baby where the nipple's going straight in, the baby would have the same amount of the areola all the way around in their mouth. That would be called a symmetrical latch. But in actual fact, for better milk transfer for your baby and a more comfortable latch for mummy, the baby should have more of this part of the breast in their mouth than what sits up at the nose. So it's actually an asymmetrical latch. So if you can just remember, when you're trying to latch your baby, you want to tip up your breast, and when you get that big wide open mouth, you want to flip the nipple into the back as far as you can. So if you can just remember, tip and flip. Now, this is a picture of a little baby that was trying to get latched, and as you could see in the previous picture, baby had that nice big wide open mouth. But boy, oh boy, can they ever close that mouth quickly. So right now, this may take you several tries to get your baby latched, and that's normal at this stage. You're going to find your little babies learn very, very quickly. In order to get fed, they have to get latched, and to get latched, they have to keep their mouth open longer. So it's going to get much easier in the next couple of weeks. Now, this is a picture of a little baby that is well latched to the breast. And as you can see that little chin, how it's really well buried into the breast, and see how the nose is slightly away. Okay, so that's what your little baby should look like at the breast. You might wonder, what does it feel like and what should I look for to see if I have a good latch? When your baby goes to the breast, you should be feeling a tugging sensation. And at the beginning, for the first couple of weeks, some moms find that uncomfortable. It shouldn't be painful, shouldn't be pinching pain, but strong tugging is normal, and some women do find that uncomfortable. Your little baby's chin should be really well buried into the breast and the nose slightly away. And then you want to have a look at your little baby's cheeks. They should be nice and full and round. They shouldn't be sucking in at the sides. Nice, full, round cheeks. When your baby starts nursing at the breast, and you might not hear a lot of swallows the first couple of days because the colostrum comes in very small amounts and it's usually thicker. But as your milk starts coming in, you're going to start to listen for those swallows at the breast. So what it sounds like, it's a little ka sound every second to third suck. So you want to start listening for that. There shouldn't be any clicking or smacking sounds. And one thing that's really, really important that can tell you a lot about how your baby is latched is what your nipple looks like after that baby comes off the breast. So basically, it should just be round but more elongated. If it looks like a brand new lipstick, then that's showing it is compressing one side of the nipple. Or if there's a white line right across your nipple, that shows that the baby's compressing your nipple between the tongue and the roof of the mouth. And pretty soon, that white line is going to start to break down, it will start to bleed, and you're going to end up with a very sore nipple. Cracks, blisters, bleeding, that should not be happening. And if that starts to happen, you want to get in contact with your public health nurse right away. Okay, let's just take a look at tummy size. It always amazes me to see that babies start out with very tiny tummies, but look what happens by 1 week, the change in the tummy size. Because they start out with such tiny tummies, their little tummies are going to fill up very quickly, and breast milk is very easily digested, so therefore it's going to leave the tummy quickly. These little babies will need to get in at least 8 feedings in a 24-hour period, but it's very normal for babies to feed anywhere from 8 to 12 times in a 24-hour period. All babies do lose some weight the first few days, but right around day 4 is when that weight should stabilize and then start to go up. Check inside your little baby's mouth. Inside the mouth should be nice and wet and shiny, and it shouldn't be dry and sticky in there. And just remember, when your little baby is at the breast, you do want to start listening for those swallows. All right, challenges are common. Okay, so if you're having problems after you leave the hospital, really important to get in contact with your public health nurse right away. Don't leave it because it's only going to get worse, and get in and get the help. Cluster feeding. Now, usually around the second night, these little babies all of a sudden wake up. They'll have a great feed, and this is probably about 11 o'clock at night, and then you'll think to yourselves, oh good, we're going to get a couple of hours sleep. 15 minutes later, baby wakes up again and they want to eat again. And this can go on for like a 5-hour stretch. They go on a feeding frenzy. It's called cluster feeding. And now if it hasn't happened to you yet, be prepared. It will happen tonight or tomorrow night, okay? And that is completely normal. Your little baby is working really hard to get your milk in as quickly as possible. So just feed your baby. Babies will feed more frequently during growth spurts, so around 10 days, and then again around a month, and then around 3 months, your baby may go on little feeding frenzies. That's going to bring the volume of your milk up. Your nighttime feeding is really important right now. Now, remember I said at the beginning of the class that little babies are up a lot during the nighttime. And the reason that is, it's all connected to the mummy. The hormone for milk production is called prolactin, and it peaks in the nighttime. So when these little babies are up in the night feeding, they are stimulating that hormone to all the receptors in mummy's breasts, not only to bring in that good supply, but to help maintain that supply for many months down the road. It's nature's way of protecting a baby's food source. So your nighttime feeding is really important right now. All right, so let's just do some breastfeeding basics here. Your breast milk is made by supply and demand. So when you are feeding your little baby at the breast, you're actually making the food for the next feed. That's the way the body works. Babies should finish the first breast on their own, and then you burp the baby and always offer the second side. And at your next feeding, you are going to start on the side that you left off on because they always take more from the first breast. Breast milk is considered the perfect food for the first 6 months for your baby, and then you're going to start adding solids to their diet. Now, you can go down to the public health unit or you can go to the Best Beginnings website because they have some very current, helpful information on introducing solids to your baby, which can be very helpful. And it has really changed since your parents started feeding solids to you. So Health Canada, the World Health Organization, and the Canadian Pediatric Society, they recommend exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months, then the introduction of solids, and they're really trying to encourage people to breastfeed their children longer. Now, you might wonder, who came up with that number 2? Why isn't it 1 year of age? Why isn't it 3 years of age? What's so magic about 2? These are all toddler-age children. They may only breastfeed once or twice in a 24-hour period. So they're in the age group 13 months to about 2.5 years of age. Okay, so it's not for the calories anymore. They're eating lots of solid food for their calories. But what they've been doing a lot of research in the last 5 years is this age group and their immune systems. Okay? Through their research, they found that the toddler age group does not get up to the adult levels of immunity until they hit in the range anywhere from 22 months to 26 months of age is when it's boosted up. And 1 or 2 breastfeedings in a 24-hour period brought those levels up to the adult levels to help protect this age group from infection. This age group is at very risk for contacting a lot of infections because toddlers are little explorers and they go around, their whole world is explore, explore, touch everything, and their hands are always in their mouth. So this is a way that you can help protect your toddlers from infection. Okay, if for some reason you're needing to supplement your baby with some formula, some of our babies for medical reasons, or if you need to go home doing this while you're waiting for your milk supply to get established, it's very important that you get the correct information on doing this in a safe way. There are 2 sheets that we need to give you, so you would want to ask your nurse for those. And also just to be very, very careful what you're buying out there and make sure you read the directions very carefully. There are 2 types of liquid formula on the market. One of them is a ready to give, so you don't do anything with it. The other liquid formula is a concentrated liquid where you have to bring it home, boil a certain amount of water, cool the water, and then add it to it. And there has been a few cases in the last year where parents have gone home and they're tired and run out and bought the formula and accidentally bought the concentrated formula thinking it was the ready to give and given their babies concentrated formula without mixing it with the water, and that can cause kidney damage to your baby. So please be very careful that you read the directions very, very carefully. Okay, burping your baby. There's lots of different ways that you can burp your baby. I really like this way when they're little, or supporting the baby on your chest. This way here and this way here is great for when the babies are a little bit older. So if you're using this way, I'll just demonstrate with my little baby here. You just sit the baby on your lap and you want to take the baby with your thumb and first finger and just put them right around the baby's jaw, not around their neck, but right around their jaw, and let the baby fall into the palm of your hand. Because right about where the palm of your hand sits is right about where that little baby's tummy is, and that provides a little bit of pressure on the baby's tummy to help bring up the burp. And then you just do some gentle patting. You should get into the habit of trying to burp your little baby after each breast. Now, in the early days, your baby might not do a lot of burping because they're taking very small volumes. But as the volume starts to increase, then you're going to find that your babies are going to start burping a lot more. Okay? All right. You've been keeping track of your baby's feeds and the wet diapers and the bowel movements on those little sheets that we have given you. Now, we've got a different version of the sheets that you've been using right over here, and I really encourage you to come and collect 3 or 4 of these sheets to take home with you, and you're going to put these by your change table at home. You're going to keep the record for 24 hours, and then you're going to add it up. And on the back of these sheets, it's going to give you ideas what to look for. Because another way of assessing how your baby is transferring milk at the breast is what goes in needs to come out. So if your baby is not meeting these guidelines, then you know you need to get some help right away. So as you look at this, okay, you can see the first couple of days, babies might not have a lot of wet diapers. And sometimes you open up that diaper, it's just got a very little bit of urine in it, and it can be really dark, strong smelling urine. But right around day 4 or 5, all of a sudden, you're going to start increasing. You're going to start noticing that those wet diapers are increasing, the diapers are getting heavier, and the urine should almost get to be a pale, very light colored urine with very little smell to it. So it shouldn't be strong smelling. So that by 1 week, your baby should be having at least 6 to 8 good wet diapers in a 24-hour period. That's what you want to look for. Okay, some little babies in the first few days of their life may pass bricky-colored crystals in their urine. Now, that baby's diaper has a lot of bricky-colored crystals in the urine. Sometimes you just open up a diaper and there's just a little trace that you see. Basically, it's just telling us the urine is quite concentrated. Now, that is normal up to about day 4. Day 4 and beyond, your baby should not be passing bricky-colored crystals in the urine. The urine should get to be a lot more dilute. The diapers should start to feel heavier. Okay, have you all changed that really black sticky stool? Now that is called the meconium, and that is what built up in the baby's system over the past 9 months when they were growing in mummy, okay? So once the babies get rid of that meconium, you're going to find that your baby's bowel movements are going to have a lot of changes in this next week. So I will warn you, this next slide has a lot of poopy diapers on it. So this is the meconium, so that's the first stool. That's what built up in the baby's system over the past 9 months. And then this is what we call a transitional stool, okay? It turns to sort of browny green. Now this is quite green. It usually isn't quite that green. It's usually more browny green, but it gets a lot runnier. When your breast milk is completely in, this is the color you're going to be looking for. It's like a mustard yellow. Now some little babies, it's kind of curdy. Some little babies, it's more seedy. Then you get the other little babies where it's very watery. Now that is not diarrhea in a breastfed baby. That is completely normal. If you ever see blood in your baby's bowel movement, that is of a concern. You should take your baby into the doctor and have your baby seen right away. Now, all of you should have received one of these little charts here. Now, the nursing staff, we all call them the poop charts, okay? So this condition is known as Billary Atresia, and just to let you all know, this is not something that is common. But if it's caught early, these babies are very treatable. But if it's not caught early, these little babies can go into complete liver failure and require a liver transplant. So this is why we are educating all families on this, because if we can prevent just one case of this, it's worth it to educate everybody. Your nurse will be going over this little chart with you, but basically it's these top 3 boxes here that is of concern. And you don't wait till their bowel movements are completely like that. If you see traces of colored bowel movement that looks like those colors, you would want to take your baby into the doctor right away and have your baby assessed. The first 2 months are the critical period, but your nurse will be going over this with you before you get discharged. And if you didn't get one of these little charts, please ask your nurse for one of those. All right, newborn jaundice. This is quite common in our babies, and this can happen anytime after your baby is born, up to about 10 to 12 days when babies can develop what we call newborn jaundice. And so this is why we tell you about it, because it could actually happen after you leave the hospital. So this is a little baby that's jaundiced. Can you see how that little baby's skin looks kind of yellow? It looks like he snuck outside and got a little suntan without you. The whites of the baby's eyes can even get yellow. And generally speaking, when these little babies get jaundice, they tend to get quite sleepy and they don't feed very well. Now, all of your little babies are going to have a billy test done before they go home. So the nurse will be coming in with this little meter. She'll do these little flashes on the forehead or flashes on the chest. That gives us a readout number, okay? And if that number is too high, we will order a blood test for your baby because it's much more accurate. Now, if that test came back too high, your baby might require some help to get rid of that jaundice, okay? So what we do is we put them under a special light. It's called a phototherapy light, or you might hear it called a Billy light. And then sometimes we lay them on a little blanket called a Billy blanket. And the treatment is usually about 24 hours. And if you're in the hospital here and that happens, we set up that treatment in your room. We teach you how to look after the baby under the light, and you just stay an extra 24 hours while your baby's having that treatment. If you've gone home and you need to bring your baby back, you would go next door to pediatrics and the baby would go under phototherapy there and mommy would come in so she could continue to feed the baby. Now you might wonder, what would cause my baby to be jaundiced and somebody else's baby didn't get jaundiced? Little babies are born with a lot of extra red blood cells. Their hemoglobin, that's the red blood cells, is way higher than ours. And the reason that they're born with that extra hemoglobin and all those extra red blood cells is when they were in their mummies, they had to get their oxygen from their mummy's red blood cells. So in order to get enough from their mummy, they had way more. So they're born with all those extra red blood cells. But once they're born and they're transferring their own air, they don't need all those extra red blood cells, so they get sent off to the liver to get broken down. And one of the byproducts that's released during that breakdown is called bilirubin. And it's washed out through the baby's urine and the baby's bowel movements, okay? Now some little babies, their livers are just a little bit immature. They can't process it quick enough and get it through the system, so it backs up into the liver, then it backs up into the bloodstream, and that's what causes these little babies to get jaundiced. So this is just something you do have to watch for, it because it could happen after you go home. Okay, so things that you can do to help if your baby's slightly jaundiced. Trying to encourage the baby frequently will help. The more the baby is peeing and pooping, that is going to help clear the system of that extra bilirubin that they are carrying around. But like I say, if you get home with your baby's looking yellower, the baby's sleepy and not feeding as well, please make sure you take your baby back to the doctor and have your baby checked. Okay, bathing your baby. I understand all of you got to see your baby bath, so that's great. They do have little bathtubs like this for babies. It's a very cute picture, but these little bathtubs are $85, believe it or not, and I just think, well, why couldn't we just buy a nice little bucket to put the baby in? But I thought it was a cute picture. Just remember, you can buy all kinds of support systems to put babies on in bathtubs. Remember, don't ever turn your back on a baby that's around any kind of water source, because these little babies, they start moving around very quickly. And also remember, your little baby does not need a bath every day. There are going to be days when you are overwhelmed. The main thing is keeping their bottom ends really clean, and under their chins where they might get milk is really important. But they do not need to be bathed every day. Please do not be using powders around your babies. When you are putting powder, baby powder on a little baby's bottoms, those little babies are inhaling all that powder. And please stay away from perfumed products. Babies smell absolutely wonderful just the way they are. Your little baby's cord, it should fall off anywhere in about 5 to 15 days. Now that we leave them alone, we're finding that they fall off much quicker. Now, a lot of your little baby's cords will have the cord clamp still on them. If that cord clamp is down really close to the baby's skin, you might want to ask your nurse to take that off for you if it's going to be interfering with cleaning around your baby's cord, okay? We are asking you to fold the diaper down below the cord, and the reason that we ask you to do that is so that the air can circulate around the cord. Your little baby's cord has no feeling in it, so it's not that the diaper's hurting the cord. It's like your fingernails or your hair, so it's no feeling. But we want it folded down so that the air can circulate around it. Now, as far as cleaning the baby's cord, we just recommend good old soap and water. When you bath your baby, we're going to get you to wash the cord. When you take the baby out of the tub, you want to dry it really well where it's going into the body. We don't care about the end of it here. It's where it meets the body. So you can take the corner of the towel, dry it really well, and then have some Q-tips at your change table, and 3 or 4 times during the day, any little bits that start to slough off it, because that will happen, take a Q-tip and just clean them away. Okay? Now this is a picture of a little baby's cord that has just fallen off. You might get a little bit of old dark spotting. That's normal. Bright red bleeding is not normal. So bright red bleeding, you would want to take the baby into the doctor. Now have a look at this little baby's cord here. Do you see how it's very red and swollen, and it probably has a mucky, smelly yellow discharge as well? That little baby has a cord infection. Cord infections are very serious in the newborn. So if you see anything like that with your baby's cord, you would want to take your baby into the doctor immediately. Please don't leave that. Okay. Sleeping positions. What do we notice about all of these little babies? They're all sleeping on their backs. Another thing that we notice, all the babies' arms are free. None of them are swaddled like tight little mummies. And then the other thing, all these sleeping places, they look very bare. There's no bumper pads in them. There's no quilts. There's no pillows. There's no big stuffed animals. Back in 2004, the Sudden Infant Death Syndrome Society started asking us to put babies on a firm, flat surface on their backs to sleep and take all that stuff out of the crib, bumper pads, quilts, pillows, big stuffed animals. The incidence of sudden infant death syndrome went down significantly. So this is why we're asking you to do this. As far as loose bedding in the crib, babies, when they get a little older, they can pull that right over their head. So that can interfere with the air that circulates around their face. They don't think that these little babies got into the bumper pads or the little stuffed animals and suffocated, but what they think happens is when they get in close to surfaces like that, it does interfere with the air that circulates around the baby's face. So if you're going to be using bedding in the crib, you would want to make sure that that's well tucked under the mattress so that the baby can't get it anywhere around their face. Okay? This is a little sleep sack. These things I find work really well. You can get summer weight, winter weight sleep sacks. And if it's the winter time, you put them in an undershirt, you put them in a winter weight sleeper, and then you just pop them in a winter weight sleep sack. That keeps all the heat in there. Their arms are free. They can move around. They can't pull anything up over their heads. So these little things work very well. When little babies are sleeping on their backs, if they need to bring anything up, the baby needs to be able to move around freely in order to do that. So if you've got your baby swaddled so tightly that they can't move, the baby could actually choke. So arms should always be free. Okay? Newborns love to be swaddled. So if you have your baby and you're holding your baby, swaddling is great. Or if you've got your baby right beside you, watching your baby, that's fine. But if you're putting your baby down to sleep and you're going to sleep, please make sure they're on a firm, flat surface on their backs with their arms free. Okay, how can we keep these little babies safe? Just to review. Firm, flat surface on their backs to sleep with their arms free. Have the baby sleep in very close proximity with the parents, so in other words, in the parents' room for the first 6 months. Maintaining babies at comfortable temperatures. An overheated baby is at more risk. So if you pick up the baby from their sleeping spot and they're sweating behind the ears or they're sweating behind the neck, that shows that the baby's too hot. Okay? Breastfeeding decreases the risk. Now, if you or your partner are smokers, even if you only smoke outside, that little baby should not be sleeping in the same room with you, and they are at greater risk of dying from sudden infant death syndrome. So we really encourage you to get the help to quit smoking, not only for yourselves, but for your children as well. Any use of alcohol or drugs, of course, is going to increase the risk of sudden infant death syndrome. Okay?
Great. Quick pause.
Okay, so you might want to know what you should look for when you think you need to take your baby to the doctor or signs that your baby might be sick. Now, not all babies display the same kind of signs. So, first of all, we've gone over a lot of these already. If your baby's not having enough wet diapers or bowel movements or showing no interest in feeding, well then of course you would want to call and get some help right away. Don't leave it. We've already gone over cord infections. If your little baby has a fever, you would want to take your baby into the doctor. Now some little babies, when they get sick, they'll get extremely fussy. Now those little babies tend to get seen sooner than these little babies. The little baby that goes to sleep, they start sleeping more and more. The parents have to go in every time to wake them up for a feed. Baby gets to breast, they have a 5-minute feed, and then they want to go right back to sleep. Now sometimes first-time parents confuse that very sleepy behavior with, they thought, oh, we've got such a content baby as all the baby does is sleep, when in actual fact, the baby was sick. We call that kind of behavior shutting down behavior. If you have a preterm baby, a little baby that we call preterm or a near-term baby that's 35, 36, even 37 weeks, those little babies, we are going to be giving you feeding plans where you're going to go in wake them up, and ensure that they are eating at least every 3 hours. Okay? If your baby has any breathing problems, skin color, gray, dusky undertones, those are 911 calls. This is going to be your very best guideline, trusting your instincts as parents. When people bring their babies into the hospital or into the doctor thinking that there's something wrong with them, 99% of the time the parents are absolutely right. You have that inner connection to your babies, so always go by your instincts. Don't ever leave your baby if you think that there's something wrong. All right, skin-to-skin contact. If you do lots of this in the next couple of weeks, when you go home with your baby, you're going to find your babies are going to be a lot more content. It does all these wonderful things. You've got to remember that that baby was in the perfect spot for 9 months, and then all of a sudden they're born out into this world, and that can be very stressful for them. So first of all, your body temperature is the perfect temperature for them. So that stabilizes their temperature, it stabilizes their heart rate, and when they're lying on your chest skin to skin, that whole sensation of you breathing encourages them to stabilize their breathing rate. Also, it increases a baby's blood sugar. Now, you might wonder, how could it increase a baby's blood sugar even if the baby wasn't eating? When a baby is warm and cozy and feeling really secure, their blood sugars actually go up. But when a baby gets cold and they're stressed, their blood sugar drops quite quickly. This is great for bonding as well, and it also helps to promote breastfeeding because baby is in the right place. And you've got to remember that little baby was in the perfect place. So this is going to really ease that transition from that intrauterine life to the extrauterine life by spending lots of skin-to-skin time with their mummies and daddies. And dads, if mummy's gone off to take a nap, you just get that little baby skin to skin with you and put a little blanket over the baby. The babies absolutely love it. And dads, you don't have to shave off your hairy chest. Babies love a hairy chest. They're very tactile. They just love that. Tummy time. Tummy time's really important in our babies because they spend so much time on their backs. When they're sleeping, they're lying on their backs. Traveling around in a car, where is their little head pressed? It's pressed to the back of the car seat. And right now, the bones in your baby's skull are quite soft. So if you don't get them down on their tummies enough, they can start developing a flat spot on the back of their head. That does not cause brain damage, but if you don't take care of it quickly, it actually could become permanent. And there are people out there that are walking around that have these very flat heads at the back, and that's very preventable. The other thing that is really important about tummy time, it gets the baby developing the muscles, their neck and shoulders, by lifting up their own heads. And if they're not ever on their tummies, they don't have the opportunity to do that. So you can start this right away. You don't have to wait till the cord falls off. Some of these babies are very young babies. This is a set of twins. They're very new. There's a little baby, and there's a newborn on his daddy's chest. So there's lots of different ways of doing tummy time. You should try and do tummy time approximately 10 minutes, 3 or 4 times a day, and you want to do the tummy time when the baby's in that nice, awake, alert state where they're just kind of looking around. And this is supervised tummy time. It's not time for you to run off and get your dishes done or get the laundry done. This is the time you're going to spend enjoying your baby, talking to your baby, singing to your baby, playing lots of music to your baby. And also, very, very important, we want you to start reading to your little babies right away. Don't even wait 3 or 4 weeks down the road. If you start reading to these little ones right away, and right now you would want to choose 2 very simple books, and you want to try and get the books that rhyme. Because at this age, little babies, they love repetition and they love rhyme. And yes, you will get sick and tired of reading those same little stories over and over again. But if you start this right away, within about 5 or 6 weeks, when you pull that little book out and you start reading, you want to pay attention to your baby's eyes. It's just like the light bulb goes off. It's just amazing to watch. So this is going to really help your children in their later years. So taking care of yourself, like I said at the beginning of the class, it's really important to sleep when your baby sleeps, okay? Don't rely on getting sleep at night and try not to have too many visitors at the beginning. The best kind of visitors are the ones that knock on the door, pass you a casserole and say, we're going to leave you, you call us when you want us to come and visit, okay? Because you're going to find you're very tired. When you feel ready, try to get involved in your baby groups out in the community. This can be a huge support network. They do have them through the public libraries, and they also have them through the public health unit. And they have groups right from newborns all the way up to 18 months of age. And you're going to be there to support new mummies coming into the group. When you go into the group, there's going to be mummies there that are going to be there to support you. It's really nice to be able to talk to somebody that's had a bad night just like you've had a bad night, and you can share that with somebody. Now, as far as the healing process goes, we really encourage you to take that little plastic wash bottle that we've given you. We want you to take that home, and you just use warm water in it, just like you've been using here. And you should use that bottle until your flow has completely gone. Now, your flow should be gone by around day 15 to 20. You are going to find your flow does increase when you're breastfeeding. And the reason that that happens is the hormone that ejects the milk when you're breastfeeding is also the same hormone that clamps your uterus back down to that 2 little ounce size it was before you got pregnant. Change your pads very frequently because blood is the perfect breeding ground for bacteria, and if you sit in those pads for long hours, you're putting yourself at risk of developing a nasty infection. Okay, for those of you that have had a cesarean section, you want to keep your incision nice and clean and dry as well, and you shouldn't be lifting anything heavier than your little baby for the first 4 to 6 weeks, and that does not mean your baby in a car seat. Car seats with babies in them, that is way too heavy. Remember to take your pain relievers as you need them so that you're able to care for your baby. And the other thing is, it's really important that you check with your doctor or with your obstetrician when you are allowed to drive. Okay? Okay, so let's look at nipple care. As you can see from this mummy's nipple, the front of this nipple, the skin has come right off, and now she has developed a scab over that. That's extremely painful. So nipple tenderness is normal. You have to expect some nipple tenderness, but excruciating pain is not normal. So cracking, bleeding, scabbing, blistering, that is not normal. So if this type of thing starts to happen to you, you do not want to leave that. You want to get into your public health nurse as quickly as possible because you need to find out why that is happening to you. There's something about the latch that is causing that kind of damage to a nipple. Now, hopefully you will not get engorged. This can happen sometimes with mummies when their milk all of a sudden comes in quite quickly by frequent feeding. Okay, you don't want to go long periods between feedings. If you breastfeed your baby frequently, hopefully you won't get engorged. But if you do get engorged, where the breasts get very, very hard and firm, and it might be difficult for the milk to let down, you want to call your public health nurse and get the help. The use of cold compresses can really help take that swelling down. But call the public health nurse, get in to get the help so that you can get the help to resolve that engorgement. And it can take 3 or 4 days for that to go down. Now, all of you should have received this little pamphlet in your packages that you got during your pregnancy. So you might want to just get this out and review it. And it's pretty well the same guidelines for pregnancy as it is for breastfeeding, except you're going to find you're really, really hungry and you need to eat more food. Now, please don't worry that you're going to gain weight because you're eating more food. Breastfeeding is the most wonderful diet of all. You get to eat lots of food and the weight just falls right off you. So enjoy it while you can, but just remember, whatever you're eating, your baby is eating 4 or 5 hours later. So you do want to stick to that really nice, healthy, well-balanced diet. You're going to find you're really thirsty when you're breastfeeding, so you do need to drink extra fluids, and you don't need to overdrink. There used to be an old wives' tale out there that if you drank lots and lots of fluids, you'd make more milk. Well, that's not true, but you need to drink to thirst. Foods that you should avoid, Fish that's high in mercury, so you wouldn't want to be choosing a lot of tuna fish. Halibut is not a good choice as well. Salmon is fine, you can eat salmon. Foods that are contaminated with listeria, okay? The deli luncheon meats, well, they're not good for you anyway, okay? Please don't ever diet while you're breastfeeding. You're going to find just with breastfeeding and eating a healthy diet, you will lose weight. You want to expose your baby to lots of flavors. Quite often I get asked questions. Oh, should I avoid cauliflower? Or am I allowed to have chocolate? Well, I couldn't live without my piece of chocolate every day. It's everything in moderation. So yes, you can have a piece of chocolate, you can have broccoli, you can have cauliflower. Spicy food, your baby loves spicy food. The research shows babies that have been exposed to a lot of different flavors while they were breastfeeding are less picky toddler eaters, okay? We really encourage you to continue taking your prenatal vitamins for as long as you're breastfeeding, and also make sure that your calcium intake is good, okay? For the coffee drinkers that just can't give up their coffee, 1 cup of coffee a day is okay. For the tea drinkers, 2 to 3 cups of tea a day is okay. But if you're drinking massive amounts of coffee and tea, your baby's going to be like this, and your milk supply could take a little bit of a dip. Okay? So vitamin D for our babies. It is recommended that all breastfeeding babies be supplemented with vitamin D. So we would like you to speak to your midwife or your doctor, and you can do this before you go home, or you can do it on the first visit that you take the baby to, and they will recommend. There's a couple different products out there. There's a D-drop product where it's just a drop which provides 400 international units, or sometimes you can buy the vitamin D liquid form and they get a little half a dropper full. But you would want to discuss this with your doctor or your midwife, and they will let you know the dosage that they would like you to give to your baby and when to start it. All right, the baby blues. We all go through the baby blues after we've had a baby, and it's not just the mommy that goes through the baby blues, it's the dad as well. And dads usually go through the baby blues a little bit later than mommy. First of all, the birth experience is overwhelming for both parents. And then you're both going through that sleep deprivation, which you're not used to. And then on top of that, mommy goes through this huge hormonal shift really, really quickly in her body. So you might come into the room, mom's crying her eyes out, she has no idea why she's crying, okay? This can go on for a couple of weeks. And dads, I will let you know when it's going to happen to you. Usually it's after you go home, you've been home for 3 or 4 days, and mom says, you know what, you got to go out and get some diapers and some milk and all kinds of groceries. Daddy comes back into the house with all the groceries. Mom's crying her eyes out, baby's screaming the little head off, and dad just wants to throw his hands up in the air and start crying too, like, what happened to us? And I always say, dads, have a good cry with mom. Everybody's going to feel a whole lot better, okay? So this is normal. This can go on for a couple of weeks. But unfortunately, postpartum depression has increased significantly over the last 5 years. And quite often when a mommy goes into a postpartum depression, she doesn't see it happening to herself. You can say to her, well, how's everything going? You know, how's it with the baby? And she'll have this great big plastered smile on her face. Oh yes, everything's fine, because isn't that what you're supposed to say after you've got this beautiful little baby? Isn't that what it's supposed to be all about? But for many women, once dad has gone back to work, especially if they've been used to having their career where they're around people, talking to people, all of a sudden they're at home with this little baby, and sometimes that can be very lonely for a lot of women. And they may not even recognize it in themselves. So we really encourage partners, family members to watch mommy very carefully for the first few months after she's had a baby, and sometimes they pick up on it quicker. So if you notice, mom's just not herself. She's not sleeping even when the baby sleeps. You can just tell something's wrong. She's sad. She's not enjoying the things that she used to enjoy. Please make sure that you get her in and get her the help as soon as possible. That first year of your baby's lives are the most incredible journeys you're going to go through with your children. They go from being these little babies like this, 1 year of age, a lot of them are running around all over the place. It's just an amazing year. And mummies that go through postpartum depression, they don't enjoy that year at all. In fact, it's a huge struggle for them to get through that. Every mummy has the right to enjoy that special year with her baby. So please get mum in and get the help. This Pacific Postpartum Support Society is a wonderful society that you can get in touch with that is very supportive of the entire family of somebody that's going through postpartum depression. The period of purple crying. You should have all received one of those little DVDs, the little purple DVD, and we really encourage you to watch this. Probably before your baby hits about 2 weeks of age would be a good time. Now, the reason that they call it purple crying is they found through their 25-year study all over the world that babies cried the most around 2 to 3 months. It was unpredictable, resisted soothing, pain-like look, long bouts of crying, generally happening late afternoon, evening time, when the parents were getting really tired. So that's what the purple stands for. Now, back in my day, we used to call these babies colicky babies. You might have heard your parents say, oh, you were such a colicky baby, you cried a lot. So if your baby does start this behavior, you would want to take your baby into the doctor to make sure there's nothing wrong with them. Now, if we just take a look at this graph here, as you can see, all babies start crying more around 2 weeks. It peaks between 2 to 3 months, and look what happens here. It drops down significantly by 4 to 5 months. But look at that little group of babies there. They could cry for 5 to 6 hours in a 24-hour period, generally happening all together, late afternoon, evening time when the parents are getting tired, and some of them can be very difficult to console. But they studied these babies for many years after, and they found this group of babies that went through this, 99% of them turned out to be perfectly happy, healthy children. Because if you have one of these little babies that screams and screams and screams for hours on end and you're walking the floor and you start to wonder, is there something wrong with my baby that they could cry like that and I can't console them? Also, the other nice things for parents to realize, there is light at the end of the tunnel. It's going to get better. So parents find that very helpful as well. Okay, so things you can do to help soothe your baby, and every baby is different, so you will have to do some experimenting. First of all, try putting the baby back on the breast several times in a row. Sometimes that can interrupt a crying cycle. Now, a breastfed baby will not overfeed. You can't do that with a bottle-fed baby because they will overfeed. Some babies responded really well to motion, so the little baby swings work well, or in a rocking chair, going out for a stroller ride. Hopefully you won't have to drive around for 2 or 3 hours every night at the cost of the gas, but some babies respond well to that as well. Putting on a vacuum or putting on a dishwasher. Now, I always find that amazing. All of a sudden, the baby stops crying. It's very, very strange, but some babies, it just interrupts that cycle. Some babies have been overstimulated. They need to get into a quiet spot like a bedroom, maybe with a rocking chair could help. Try taking a warm bath with your baby, holding the baby in different positions. Now, if you're going through this with your baby and your partner works afternoon shift, nobody should have to go through this themselves. It's very stressful on the parents. So please make sure you do get some help into the house, and always know it is okay to take a break from a crying baby. Quite often parents feel very guilty about putting a baby down that's crying, because as humans, when you hear a baby cry, you want to pick the baby up and you want to console the baby. And I don't care who you are, you can have the patience of a saint. When you're dealing with this night after night, it wears you down. And your little clue that you will need to take a break, you'll be walking that baby, and all of a sudden, you might not say it out loud, but inside you'll say, I just can't take this any longer. That's your clue. You need to take a break. And the best thing to do, put your baby in a safe place. Safest place is the crib. Shut the door and walk away. And don't be afraid to do that. Your baby's not going to hurt themselves crying in a crib. Get on the phone if you're by yourself and see if you can get somebody to come over and help you. But even if they can't come immediately, they say that little 5-10 minute telephone conversation with another adult helps to bring down the stress level so that you're able to go back and try and console your baby again. Okay? All right, car seats. We would like you to bring your car seat up to the unit. We don't want you to bring the base. The base should already be properly installed in your motor vehicle. And then we are going to ask you to put your baby in the car seat, and we're going to come and check it. And if there's any advice we can give you, we will. Now, it is the law that babies are in the rear-facing position for 1 full year now, okay? But the new recommendation out there is keeping these little babies rear-facing for at least 2 years. So the law is 1 year, but the new recommendation, which will become the law, is at least 2 years and beyond. These little babies do way better when they're involved in a motor vehicle accident when they're in the rear-facing position. Okay? Very important that your babies are put in their car seats properly with every car trip. Babies should not be traveling around in cars where they're slumped all over this way, they're slumped all over this way. This can interfere with the baby's airway if they're not positioned properly in the car seat. If your baby does need positioning in the car seat with rolled up blankets, your nurse will show you how to do this. And please do not be bringing your babies into the house if they've fallen asleep in their little infant car seat. You do not bring the baby into the house, drop them down in the hallway, and then go about your business and just leave them coming back when they wake up. Car seats are not meant for that. There has been 2 tragedies in the last year where babies have succumbed in car seats that were not positioned properly in the car seats, all slumped over, and it interfered with their airway. So please do not do that. Okay, on the day that you go home, we are going to be giving you this little pamphlet. Your nurse will give it to you, and we fax the public health nurse all the information about your baby's birth. So this program is called the Best Beginnings Program, and it's run through the public health unit. You will receive a phone call from one of the public health nurses 24 to 48 hours after you go home. Now, they are there to follow you up for a 6 to 8 week period after you've had your baby. I cannot promise that they will come to see you in your home. They will come out to see some of you, but they may not come out to see everybody. But you can go into the public health unit for that full 6 to 8 weeks. You can call them 7 days a week, 8:30 to 4:30. If you want any information, if you have questions regarding yourself or your baby. So they are there for follow-up care. So you will all receive this little pamphlet on the day that you go home. Do you all have this little book called Baby's Best Chance? This is a wonderful resource. It's also on the internet, so you can pull it up on the internet if you like. That's a great resource for all the way up to 6 months that we encourage you to go to. And the other thing is this little Best Beginnings website. Now, if you would like, you can come and tear one of these little sheets off, because this gives you all the information that's on this website. And this website is very current. It was put out by Fraser Health, and it goes all the way from preparing for pregnancy all the way up to children 2 years of age. So if you're looking on how to introduce solids to a baby, there's lots of very good information on breastfeeding. You can try looking up this website. It's very, very helpful. All right, now I know this is a little bit early to be talking to you about milk donation, but we are always looking for milk donors in Fraser Health. We have a level 3 nursery at Royal Columbian Hospital here, and we have some very fragile babies down in our NICU that are sometimes born 24 weeks, 25 weeks, 26 weeks, 27 weeks, and sometimes, for one reason or another, their mummies may not be able to produce breast milk, or they could be on some kind of medication that is contraindicated with breastfeeding, and it is critical that these very fragile babies receive breast milk. So if you go home in the next 6 to 8 weeks and you find that you have an abundant milk supply, you could become a milk donor. The screening process is very easy. You will get a telephone call if you decide to do this. You will get a telephone call from one of the lactation consultants down at BC Women's and Children. So it's just a telephone interview. Then you have to go for a blood test, which is paid for by the donor clinic. And then your milk that you collect once you've been screened can be dropped off at any of the public health units in Fraser House. So it's very convenient. And then what they do, they take that donor milk, it's sent down to BC Women's and Children's where it's pasteurized. And it does retain many of its very, very beneficial products for these very fragile babies. And then we get that milk back into our NICU for these very fragile babies. So if you do find you have an abundant milk supply, we would really appreciate you becoming a milk donor. So questions, when you go home, please make sure that you have a piece of paper and a pen that's handy in your house, because a lot of questions are going to come up about yourself and about your babies. And when the public health nurse calls you, or when you take your baby to the doctor or the midwife comes over, all the questions that you were going to ask are going to fly right out of your head. So please make sure that you write your questions down. Thank you very much for coming to the class.